Welcome to the Generous Business Owner Podcast, where business owners gain inspiration and encouragement to live a legacy, not just leave one. And now your hosts, Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. My name is Jeff Thomas, and I've got my trusty co-host with me today, Jeff Rutt. Say hello to the people, Jeff.
Hello to the people.
And we have a very special guest with us this week, John Maxwell. Probably needs no introduction to nearly all of you, but I'll do one or two sentences, John, anyway. He's a #1 New York Times best-selling author, speaker, coach, and leader. Has sold more than 34 million books. He's the founder of Maxwell Leadership, a leadership development organization that has trained tens of millions of leaders across the globe. John, thanks for being with us today.
Great to be with you guys. And thank you also, Alan, for your good work with this team. And I'm excited about today. I really want to help the people that are on the podcast because they have such potential. If I can give them a few insights that would just kind of help them go higher. What I like is when you deal with people of high potential and they do a little bit, it goes a long way. And so we've got the right audience, Jeff. And so let's get going.
All right, John. Jeff, start us off.
Yeah, John, the floor is all yours, but tell us a little bit about your younger years, the spiritual formation, any fun stories of growing up, getting through school, starting in your career. Yeah, walk us through some of those years.
Well, I won the parent lottery. I had great parents. My mom unconditionally loved me and had great emotional stability. My father was a driver, a terrific leader. He was in the ministry. He was a church planter. He oversaw 200 churches, of which he planted in his lifetime over 40 churches himself. He became the president. He became the president of a college, a very successful college that did very well. In fact, I went to his college first. I was called into ministry, and I went to his college first so I could be sure I graduated. Yeah. I wanted to hear him say, "John, you worked hard all 7 years of college." You know, I mean, you finally got through. So I was trained as a theologian, and I asked my father the night I graduated to give me the best advice in starting out my career. And literally I lucked out again, and he gave me the best advice I've ever received. So I'm 22, I'm 77 now. And for 55 years, I've lived off of this advice. And this advice is rooted in generosity. Advice is rooted in what I call significance. He said, "John, if you want to be a leader," and I loved leadership I was the student body president of the college. I love leadership. He said, "If you want to be a great leader," he said, "if you'll do 3 things every day, I promise you your leadership will be very successful." And he was a great leader himself. He said, "Every day value people, every day believe in them, and every day unconditionally love people." He said, "If you'll do those 3 things, people will," his words, "will flock to you." You'll never speak to small audiences, because he said people have very few people that express belief in them. Most people do not feel valued, and no one hardly has ever been unconditionally loved. And if you can provide that for the people, you will be very successful as a leader. That was the best advice I ever had. It still is. That's when I write books, I use that grid. When I speak, I use that grid. And so it set me off. But you can see I had a good home background, played a lot of ball in college. I wasn't the top student in college, but I made the top students available because that allowed them to be. But I was great on relationships. I was great on sports and played ball. Did good. I mean, I made the dean's list, but I wasn't the most smart guy going in the room. But I did have a great passion to make a difference. And so I think when you're asking about background, I received a Christmas book when I started pastoring from one of my staff members, and I love to read, and the book was entitled "The Greatest Story Ever Told." And I thought, well, this will be a huge book. I opened up the book, much to my surprise, all the pages were blank. And I went to Eileen and I said, "Eileen, says the greatest story ever told, and yet there's no story. The pages are blank." And she smiled. And she turned to the first page and she pulled back the flap, and she had written me a note on the inside. And it said basically, John, your life is before you. You write on these pages your dreams, your heart, the things that you want to do that will help people in your life. You write the greatest story ever told. And that's what started me on adding value to people, because the first thing I said the next morning I wrote on that book was, I want to make a difference. I didn't know how I was going to make a difference. I didn't even know why I wanted to make a difference, but I knew I wanted to make a difference. And what I discovered in life is when you make a difference, you live a life of high morale. And when you don't make a positive difference, you live a life of low morale. And what this time on our podcast is for our friends is for them to make a positive difference in the lives of others. Success is about me. Significance is about others. I hope everybody on your podcast becomes very successful. Jeff, Jeff and Alan, you guys have been very successful. You made money. I want you to be successful, but I also want you to live significant life. And a significant life is not a successful life. A successful life is for me. It's my home. It's my car. It's my stuff. Whatever my stuff is, I've written 100 books. I mean, I got a lot of stuff. That's what you put under success. Significance is not about me at all. It's all about others. But it's about me being willing to change the lives of others. You see, I'm to be a river, not a reservoir. I'm not to store stuff up. It's not how much water you got stored up. It's how much flows through you. The land benefits from the river that flows through it. So significance is about others. And here's what I know. I know a lot of successful people, you do too, that are very unhappy. They're not fulfilled at all in life. Their life is miserable. In fact, they got so much stuff and they want more stuff, and then they get more stuff. They don't know what to do with it because they got too much stuff. And they don't have a significant life. It's all about them. And it's never going to be enough. It's never, to a selfish person. I ask people all the time, well, how much is enough? And I find to successful people, what they have is still not enough. I don't know how much. They've never been able to discipline themselves on, here's the number that I can live on,
right,
and live comfortably, live a good life. I'm not saying live a hermit's life, live a good life. I have a wonderful life, but there's X amount of money I need. My brother at 40 was a highly successful businessman, and he already had enough money to last him all of his life. I was in San Diego, and Larry came out to see me, and he said, I think I'm going to retire. I said, what do you mean you're going to retire? Well, he says, I have everything I need. I said, that's not why you retire. I said, if you have everything you need, you're now at the point where you can start living. I said, from now on, give all of your money away. If you got enough for yourself, hey, if God gave you the gift to make money, he didn't give you the gift to make money just for you. He gave you the gift to make money to be generous. And look, I know you're very grateful for, and Larry was very grateful. And by the way, let me just say this. Generosity is the fruit of gratitude. Mm-hmm. You show me a person that's grateful, and I'll show you a person that's generous. You show me an ungrateful person, selfish, I'll show you a person not generous at all. So when I see generosity in a person's life, I know that they have anchored their money. And because money can throw you off, money can get you in messes all the time. We know that. But when you're generous, it's the checkpoint on money. It's kind of like now you're living that significant life. So that's what Larry did. And Larry is at 80 still. He's going to be 80 in a month, and he's given hundreds of millions of dollars away to the kingdom. Now, here's what I want you to know. I know a lot of unhappy, successful people. I really do. You do too.
Yep.
I do not know one unhappy person that lives a life of significance. I've never met one. Now, there's got to be one out there, and someday I'm going to meet him. I'm going to have to say, now I've met one. But I promise you, when you see people that are generous and they are a river and they let their money flow through them, and they've already settled on, this is how much money I need, I'm going to give the rest of it away. They are so fulfilled because we are born to be our brother and sister's keeper. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And so that's kind of what I grew up in life. And because I was going in the ministry, my goal was never to make money. I didn't think I was going to make money. In fact, when I asked Margaret to marry me, we've been married 55 years. I said, you need to think about this for a couple of days. I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to be living in a parsonage or a manse. Right. I may never own my own home. We're not going to have any money. You're beautiful. You probably need to find some rich guy. And we thought that through, because I never thought I'd have money. Now, I've got a lot of money now, but I didn't plan on having this money. But I started off saying I'm going to add value to people. And what I want your hearers to listen to is this. The first step of being generous is intentionally adding value to people every day.
Mm-hmm.
If you so it may not be giving money away, but every day you do something in their life that enhances their life, and that is the precursor of being a generous individual. You start, maybe you give people your time, maybe you sit down and give them some advice, but it's not about you. You got to get over yourself. It's about others. And the moment that you get over yourself and it begins to be about others, you're now starting to live that significant life. Does that make sense?
It does, John. So it reminds me of the summary of generosity I heard recently, the 7 forms of generosity: thoughts, words, time, attention, influence, money, and belongings. There's just so many. When you said add value to people, believe in them, love them, that's just oozes generosity. Talk a little bit about your first book. Talk a little, any stories of struggle. We're going to get into more of the whole concept of how do we think about going from success to significance. But would love to hear a little bit more of your story in those early years and the book number 1.
Well, first of all, Jeff, it wasn't any good. I started writing books because I had a mentor, Les Parrott, who had written 6 books. We were having lunch one day, and I said, Les, why do you write books? I had no desire to write a book. He said, John, I write books to extend and expand my influence beyond myself.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Boy, that made sense to me. Mm-hmm. He said, if I write books, I'll influence more people than if I don't write books. And I looked at Les and I said, I'm going to start writing. And so my impetus of writing was to expand and extend my influence to people I would never know. Little did I ever know it would become like this. I had no clue, but I just wrote my first book I wrote was Think on These Things, and it wasn't any good. I tell people you're never good the first time, and you're usually not too hot the second time either. But you have to get those times in, so you practice gets you good.
That's right.
And so my first book was called Think on These Things. It only had 120 pages. The problem was, and the chapters were short, they were only about 3 pages long. I had about 40 chapters in the book. And the problem with the book is I was shallow in my thinking and I was inexperienced and I was just a kid. And so I gave them chapters to think on and there wasn't anything to think on. They were the thoughts were just very young thoughts that hadn't matured or no wisdom to it. And so I had a lady come up to me the other day and she had the book. They're still in print because they won't take it out of print.
Yeah.
Okay.
I offer every year to buy the book out.
Right.
Because it's not any good. And they won't because it sells because of my name.
Right.
So I can't get the book back. So this lady brought the book to me. She said, I love this book. I said, you love this book? I said, what do you love about this book? I thought this would be interesting. And she said, well, I love the short chapters. She said, and so
how old were you, John? How old were you when you wrote that?
I was 27.
Okay.
I wasn't any good. I mean, I was my heart was good and my desire was good, but I didn't. I wasn't good enough to pull off a good book. Pull off a good book is not easy. So, but anyway, so she said, I love the short chapters, and then she looked at me and said, "How did you think? How were you smart enough to just do short chapters in your book?" And I looked at her and I said, "Lady, these chapters are short because I didn't have anything to think on." I said, in fact, some of those 3-page chapters were 2 pages too long. You know what I'm saying? There was nothing to think about. And it's hysterical, but it's still out there. But it wasn't a good book. And what I want everybody to understand is we're very seldom good the first time in any area. Mm-hmm. And so we have to go through a lot of struggle. We got to do a lot of climbing. We got to do a lot of changing. We got to do a lot of improving. We got to do a lot of self accountability in life to get successful. And I'm going to assume that most of your people have gotten to a certain level, or they wouldn't be making some money now in that whole process. But what I go back to is I was never discouraged, even when it didn't turn out right, because my motive was always right. I always did the right things for the right reasons. And you can do the right things for the right reasons and they don't come out right.
Right.
And I was comfortable with that because my motives are right. And my motives are always right because I think people matter. And because I believe people matter and I value people, I will not shortchange people. I will always find a way to add value to people and do my best to make their life better. And so that could be the story of my life in the past. I had a wonderful mentor tell me one time, there are no 2 good consecutive days in a leader's life.
Wow.
And I think that's very true. It's very true. And the reason I think that's very true is because when you're leading, you're doing the toughest things. I mean, if you're leading, you're not making the easy decisions. They're made at a lower level. You're not solving the easiest problems. They're made at a lower level. The only problems you get are the ones that no one else can handle. The decision you make or no one. So you get the tough stuff every day. And there are days as a leader, I want to say, I think I want to designate another leader. I've got to fire 2 people today, and I got to go in and I got to make some changes from what we have been doing that haven't been helping us get a good bottom line. And all of a sudden, there are times when I just sit there. I'd like to be a follower today. I'd like to have of those. So, and one of my mistakes I made early was I used to think this could have been in my think on these things book because it wasn't any good. I'm surprised I didn't put it in it. I used to think pay now, play later, so that you just work hard. And then there's a day when you get your house on top of the mountain and you don't have to do anything else. And you live happily ever after. You're kind of like in Disneyland. And all of a sudden I realized that when you pay now, you don't pay now to be released from payment. You do hard well so you can do harder tomorrow.
Right.
And you do harder tomorrow so you can do harder the next day. And the great leaders are leaders who basically have lived a life of hard. They've wrestled with the tough problems. They've settled those answers, but then they come. I did a lecture one time called 10 Trade-offs Worth Making. And the whole lecture was the fact that every time you climb into success, you come to another trade-off. And you got to ask yourself, am I willing to make that trade-off to keep going up? Or am I going to settle where I am and I'm going to stop and not grow anymore? Because you have to give up to go up. You got to give up to go up. There's no thing of it's a free ride, or there's no thing of the elevator. You got to give up to go up. And so where I used to think you pay now to play later, now I realize you don't play now to play later. You just work hard. And when you get good at hard, you get better at harder. And then you get really terrific at hardest. And that's where you really become highly successful, to be honest with you. You get into that top 2% in any field by doing hard, harder, and hardest. And one of the hardest things in my trade-offs, I came up to a place that when I got to a certain amount of money that I was making, and again, I didn't think I was going to make any money, so this was a kind of a surprise for me. But when you start writing books and I started speaking, I got a reputation. I speak internationally. I'm probably the highest paid speaker in the world that's not either a politician or an entertainer. And my nonfiction books, I sell more nonfiction books than anybody alive. In fact, now it's up to 38 million books. I sell 1 million books every year that have been written that are just past books, but they have long tails to them because the principles still live. So my books aren't 6 months books and they're gone. Of the 100 books I've written, there are only 3 out of print. So I have a pretty much a passive income in that process. And so what I did on my trade-offs is I got to a place on my trade-off tree where I said, how much money do I have to make? And I set a limit. I said down with Margaret, I said, this isn't an austerity program. We can live in a couple of houses. We can have nice cars. I'm not opposed to all that, but how much money do we have to make to have? Well, I would look at you and say, I have provided a nice life for you, especially when I was going to be a preacher. We're doing better than what we thought, and I've got a good way to take care of my children and my family. I mean, how much is that? And we settled on a number, and when we settled on that number, then we said, now let's really go make money. I mean, let's go crazy. Let's go crazy.
I love that.
Because the money I make now is not for me. I mean, I'm just out. And the guy the other day says, man, you just helped me so much, and da-da. And here's a $50,000 check. I said, would you give that to my nonprofit? And he said, you could, well, yeah, he said, I can. I said, well, I'd like that. I said, I don't really need that money myself. I pass that on to my nonprofit so we can take care of our charity project.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that probably brought you more joy than if it would have come to you.
Oh yeah. A lot of times they'll hand a check in an envelope and they'll say, does this go to you or your nonprofit? I said, it goes to me. And I had a guy one time said, well, you don't know how much money is in it. I said, it doesn't matter. I don't need it.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I love what you said there. I just want to tease this out because I think you've already dropped a bunch of great wisdom bombs on us. But I thought when you said that we call it the finish line. So we talk a lot about on this program, the three questions you need to answer. How much is enough for you? How much is enough for your kids or whoever you're financially responsible for? And what do you do with the rest? And that's a big question, but I think one of the things I've never heard before that you just said that I think is, I just want to tease out is once you sort of reached your personal financial finish line, then you could take more risk. I think what the world says is the opposite, kind of like what you were saying about your brother. Oh, now I can just relax and take no risk. What you said is I'm going to take more risk now that I'm covered. Maybe just unpack that a little bit for us.
Oh, you can because you have enough to take care of yourself. And
Right.
that because of inflation times, you could maybe 5 years out look and say we need to up that number a little bit more because
Sure, of course.
So there's nothing wrong with that. But here's what happens when you figure out what your number is. Here's what you do. Now every year you're intentional in raising your standard of giving.
Right.
And every year we raise our standard of giving. I've done this now for 12 straight years. And so we judge our success by how much more did we give away this year than we had. And you can only raise your standard of giving if you have set that line. Does that make sense to you? You got to set the line. And then now I make money. I go crazy. People say, John, why do you stop? Why would I stop now? All my money goes to great people and great events and the causes of God. And I get much more. And I tell people, you got to make money to give it. So let's make money. I'm not opposed to making money at all. Good Lord, make it. But what you got to ask yourself someday is, what am I making it for? Mm-hmm. And the sad people are making it for themselves. And there's not enough toys out there to ever satisfy you. And the fulfilled people, they're making it. And I'm looking at that $50,000 check, and I realize that's going to go in to raise more leaders in developing countries. It's going to benefit other people. So I unpack it in saying this: we consciously raise our standard of giving every year, and I could tell some incredible stories on that. But what also happens is, when you're wanting to raise more money or give away more money every year, you're intent on making more money. But I make more money for the right reason, and Amen. So I say yes to people like you, and then I put the money in the nonprofit, and so I raise it for the right reason now. And it's wonderful to make money. It is 10 times more wonderful to give it away. And the only thing I would say as you're giving it away is just be very careful that you give it in the right places, because again, if you're careful with your own personal portfolio on your own finances and you're making sure you're getting the best return on your dollar, why wouldn't you do the same thing in Christian causes and make sure you're getting the best return on your eternal dollar? So I ask myself 4 questions. When I give money away, I ask 4 questions. The leadership question comes first. Are the leaders competent, and do they have good character? Because there's a lot of groups that you can give money to, and it's a leadership problem. And because it's a leadership problem, that money is not going to be maximized. The question number 2 is, can I get involved? Is there a way that I can get my hands in the game? Because I would certainly like to be a part of something great, not just give money to be doing something great. Question number 3 is this ministry making a difference in the lives of people? And I'm very committed. If I give to a social ministry, I make sure that in their social ministry, they're bringing people to Christ. If it's just a social ministry, then the only difference is they're a well-fed center instead of a hungry center, and they still have their life. So I put salvation that's a very important thing. I want to get money where people's lives are being beautifully, incredibly changed, if that makes sense. And so is that making a difference? What I call eternal. I remember when I was a pastor, I inherited a church that gave almost $1 million a year to New Guinea for them to plant potatoes, and so I looked into it. The first year I didn't do anything because I was new, but I went to New Guinea to check things out. I found out that they were planting potatoes, and then I asked the bottom line question: now, what is your game to get these people to come to Christ? I mean, we got them planting potatoes, and in the 7 years they had not shown me one person that they led the Lord. Well, we stopped the planting potatoes program immediately. We're giving money to plant potatoes. That's not my calling. And so you got to really vet that stuff and make sure that you're putting your money where, and that's kind of a leadership question. And the other decision, go ahead. I'm sorry. The other question we ask ourselves is, how many ministries should we give to? Mm-hmm. And years ago, we decided to give to fewer ministries and give more than to a lot. Because for a while, at one time, I think I gave 1 year to 400 different ministries. I'd send them 1,000, send somebody 2,000. That was a big one. I'll give them 5. And one day I realized that doesn't make any difference in helping anybody. I'd much rather put 100,000, 150,000 into something I know has a return and be consistent. So we only do 4. We do 4 places. We do 4 places that we put our money, but we put significant money into those 4 places. And this year we'll probably put in about $4 million, give about $4 million away, and but we make it count. But we ask those questions, and it helps us in giving.
Yeah. So John, talk to our listeners. Somebody running on the treadmill, walking the dog. That's earlier in the journey, and they're weighing the option of just they're 45 and they're thinking, should I give now or should I wait? And I could give a lot more when I'm 90.
Oh, I love that question. And the answer is you should give now. And I know that for a fact. In fact, Ron Blue, who has had a great influence on me, he was 25 years ago, he was my financial mentor, and he was so solid, and he's helped me so much. His thing to us when Margaret and I were, we were in our 40s. And he was saying, do your giving while you're living, so you're knowing where it's going.
Amen.
And man, I bought into that. And so there, just like I decided how much money do we need to have a good life, I said, what's my net worth got to be? What's my net worth? And we settled on a number for our net worth, and it's a good net worth. It's a fair net worth, but it's not a great net worth. And therefore we've got that. I have that net worth. So now it goes into the giving pile again. And we settled that. I think you settled that when you're young, and we've taken care of our children. Everything's good. But somebody asked me one time, they said, what's your net worth? I said, well, that's none of your business. But I said, let me tell you what, my net worth could be worth 4 times what it is right now. I could have a humongous net worth if I really wanted to have a big net worth. But I said, you got to understand, if it's in my net worth, it's not worth a thing to anyone else.
Hey, so true.
So is my life my net worth, or is it what my worth could be net if I gave it
away? Or another way of saying it is, maybe there's a net worth in this kingdom or the next.
That's exactly.
If you're sending it ahead, which bank account are you more interested in?
Yeah, my net worth is wood, hay, and stubble.
Yeah,
his net worth doesn't perish, and so I made that. We made that decision, and again, it helps us with that finish line of getting in that line of significance. And here's what I would tell young ones: if you're not generous now, you will not be generous when you're old. Don't ever make the mistake that generosity is tied to finances. That is not true. I know people that are very generous that don't have a lot of money, but they're extremely generous, and they're generous because they're grateful. Remember this: the fruit of generosity is gratitude. If you're a grateful person, you're giving, and if you're not a grateful person, you're not giving. And it's because you think it's your money. You think it's your money. I do a sermon on perspective about possessions, and it's the Good Samaritan. And in that Good Samaritan story, you have three different perspectives about money and possessions. The robbers, their perspective was this: what's yours is mine, and I'm going to take it. That's how they thought about possessions. It's yours, I must take it. And I said, we are all born robbers because we are born selfish. If you don't believe that, look at a toddler. A toddler's perspective is what's yours is mine, I'm going to take it. So we're born in sin. We're born robbers. Okay. So don't be too hard on the robber. We got robber in us. What's yours is mine. And we see that so much in government. We see that today in a lot of areas. What's yours is mine, and I'm going to, it belongs to me. Why don't I have it? The second perspective is the priest and the Levite who saw the man that was beaten up and robbed, but they walked on the other side and did nothing about it. And their perspective about possessions was what's mine is mine, and I'm going to keep it. They felt no compassion or compulsion to help the guy. What's mine is mine. It's mine. It's my money. It's my money. It's not his. The third perspective was the Good Samaritan, whose perspective is what is mine is not mine, and I'm going to give it. And we take the Good Samaritan and we say, now that's the peak right there. If I can get to that perspective of possessions, I'm going to be generous, etc. What's mine is not mine, I'm going to give it. And by the way, that's a good one. But there's a biblical one that's higher than the Good Samaritan. And the biblical one is, what's mine is not mine. It's not mine.
Never was.
And I'm going to manage it. I'm going to serve it. And because the earth and everything, the earth and us, we're all of the Lord's. It's all a gift from him. And so what happens is my attitude and perspective about possessions. So what's mine isn't really mine. So even my stuff isn't my stuff. I don't take it with me when I die. It's gone. It's not my stuff. And once I understand what's mine is mine, and what I'll do is when I teach that to an audience, before I teach it, I'll go up to somebody like you, Jeff, and I'll say, here's a $100 bill. During my talk, I'm going to ask for $100. Would you do me a favor? Just come up and hand it to me. Don't say anything. Just hand it to me and walk back down. So I'll do that. I'll be in the middle of my talk and I'll say, gosh, as soon as I'm done, I've got to take Joe out to eat. And honest to God, I didn't bring my billfold. And I just need $100. If I could just have $100, I can take him out to eat. Would anybody just bring me $100? Well, the person I've assigned to me walks right up, gives me the $100, sits down, and everybody in the place is going, what just happened? He asked for $100. The guy walked up and gave him $100. Why did he do that? And then they start going, you'll see some say, well, why didn't I do that? And then I stop and I say, now I know you're thinking about the guy and $100 and you're wondering why he did it and why you didn't do it. I said, let me explain something to you. Before I talked today, I walked up and I gave him my $100. And I said, this isn't yours. Hold on to it. In a while, I'm going to ask for it back. And the reason he was so quick to give it back to me is he knew it wasn't his money. He had no problem giving it back to me. It wasn't his money. I said, and the day you realize it's not your money, you won't have a problem being generous. Your problem is you think it's your damn money. You think it's yours. And so you're holding on to that sucker and it's my money. And what am I going to do with my stuff? It's not your stuff. It's his stuff. And the moment that you realize it's not your money, you become generous. But if you think it's your money, now you begin to say, wait a minute, hold on. Doesn't that make sense?
It does. It's a whole principle of stewardship versus ownership. And that's so powerful. I love that.
It might even be better if he gave you $500 back. Then he could tell everybody it was the parable of the talents there.
Hey, Jeff, what I have had, this has happened 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I've asked for $100. The guy with $100 I gave to him comes, but I've had 4 or 5 other people come up and give me $100. They're just whipping out, and then I start making fun. I think, all right, I'll wait. Are there others? Are there others? And then I go to the whole. Now let me tell you about the guy that brought it to me. He brought it to me easily because it wasn't 100. But let me tell you about the other 4. They brought it to me generously.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I highlight them too, you know what I'm saying? But
good.
It's a great perspective on money.
Hey, John, this is just such a rare opportunity to talk to you, and we just thank you so much for doing this. But one thing I'm also thinking about is we think about these sort of mid-career business people who are having some success. They're trying to the world is in their ear to consume it. And of course, we're having a great conversation about another path. But another thing, and I love this idea of just leaning into your God-given skills in business. But one of your great gifts, I think, is teaching leadership. So can we talk about somebody who's listening to this, who's trying to scale a business? Heck, we're trying to scale a business in our place. I know Jeff Rudd is. What are some tips? And I know it probably comes back to those three themes that your dad taught you. But what are a couple of things you might share with us in just a few minutes about leadership in your team that helps kind of break through barriers and that mindset? I think you're so good at the mindset. Can you just share a little about the mindset of helping scale
that's a great question, Jeff. I have a coaching company. In fact, I have the largest coaching company in the world. We have 53,000 coaches in 172 countries. And they're in there to learn to be entrepreneurs. So we really help people build businesses. And we teach them two or three things. We teach them, first of all, that they never want to kill the golden goose. If the goose is laying eggs for you, you just want to make sure that goose lays bigger eggs and better eggs and more eggs. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times I watch people sell the goose too quick.
Yeah.
Or foolishly say, I'll sell that goose and I'll go do something else. And I just say, if you've got a good goose, take good care of your goose. So build your business, make your business and make your business better, make it more profitable. If you're going to be a generous person, I want you to have $1 billion company, not $100 million company.
Right.
So really build your business. The second thing we teach them, though, is radical and really works. Tithe off of your business. Have enough margin in your business that you tithe. And I'm not talking about your tithe off your personal income. I'm not talking about you tithe what you take out of your business. You got a salary there. You tithe that too. But you tithe off of your business. And I've helped many businessmen who were struggling, because when you're building a business, you want to put all the money you can in your business, because
right.
and that's smart business, by the way. Hey, instead of buying a Ferrari, take that money, stick in your business. Build your business to make it more profitable, but tithe up, because I believe that God blesses tithing. Mm-hmm. And if he says he'll open the windows of heaven when you tithe, I think that's not only personal, I think that's in your business. And so I think I tell them, let God pour some money into your business too. Let God send those clients to you. See, here's what God knows. God knows who he can trust. He knows who he's not a dumb God. And I've watched him. I have mentored gentlemen that had good businesses, and I taught them to tithe off their businesses. And those gentlemen today, where they would give $100,000 a year to the work of God, they're giving $1 million a year to the work of God, because they've learned to build off of their business. And so I really teach that a lot. And I feel that's how you keep your business in favor and blessed by God. So those are huge.
I love it. I love it. And then when you talk about adding value, I mean, you have a sort of like we do in the wealth management business, product as ministry, like the coaching that you do, the writing that you do, the product is imbued with this wisdom that is helpful and those things. But let's say, I mean, heck, we got Jeff Rudd. He's selling houses, nice place to live. that helps people, or whatever widget you might sell. But, how does a guy like Jeff or somebody else without a, that sells maybe a physical product, it's a valve company. Okay. And valves help let the water flow and oil or whatever is going through the pipes, chemicals. But how do they maybe treat their employees? How do they add value to their employees and that kind of thing?
I'm going to have to sign off, but I'm going to give you a quick answer.
Yeah.
And the answer is a very good answer. I wrote a book that's just come out called High Road Leadership. Yeah. It is the best culture book I have ever written on leadership, because culture is the most important thing a leader does for his business. Culture eats vision for lunch.
Right.
And so, because culture is behavior, what you see is not what you'll get. What you do is what you'll get. And it's the culture that gets you. So, and I have 12 chapters in High Road Leadership. And it's chapters such as value everybody. A high road leader values everybody. A high road leader wants the best for others. A high road leader does the right things for the right reason. A high road leader is accountable for his or her actions. And there's 12, each chapter is a picture of a high road leader. And I tell these business guys, get the books for your team, take 12 weeks, take a chapter a week, answer 2 questions. The 2 questions you ask is, how becoming a high road leader in this area is it going to help my family and community? And how is it going to help my business? And I'm telling you, it's life-changing stuff. After 12 weeks, you have developed a high road culture and that has helped your team and will make your team really work better together. So anyway, that's a quick, but it's a practical answer.
No, that's exactly
high road leadership. They can get it from our company. They can get it from Amazon. Okay. Andrew just put it on your screen, I think.
Yep, there you go.
And you can scan. So if you guys want it, you can just scan it right there.
Perfect.
And we'll get it to you. But that's the best way to help your team, is to develop a good culture. A good culture creates a great teamwork.
And and I know we're wrapping up here, and the final question is, and it might just be a recap because you've dropped 20 wisdom bombs on us. So I encourage people to listen multiple times and take notes, as I'm doing, frankly, listening to you. But as we wrap up, we always just say, okay, a lot of stuff we've talked about, your journey. You've got so many leadership principles and biblical principles for people. What's just one practical tip somebody can wake up tomorrow and apply? Maybe it's a mindset thing. Just a practical tip for somebody behind you on the journey. What's one thing you'd leave people with?
Take my dad's advice. Every day value people. Every day believe in people. Every day unconditionally love them. If they do that, they will become a very generous person. Guys, it's been great to be with you. Got to go.
Thanks so much. And thanks, everybody.
Keep doing your good work.
Thank you, John. Yeah, thanks, John, for joining us this week, and Jeff. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. Share it with a friend, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Generous Business Owner Podcast with Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can find the guest contact information in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.